Hello and welcome to the special event video on how to be a great GM. Today we review what happened last week in the Save or Dice game. Stay with us. Okay, hello, my name is Guy, and well, we're looking at the review of last week's Save or Dice game. Now, that's the game that I'm running on the channel Save or Dice. Link is below. If you haven't watched it, go and have a look at some amazing players from Taking 20, Nerdarchies there as well as well, it's just a fantastic cast, let's put it that way. You can go and have a look. Just trust me, go and have a look at it. Now, we are reviewing last week's performance, as one could call it, of the show. And then in the second half of the video, and there's a timestamp below as well if you want to just skip to that, we plan our third part. So if we look back at last week we had to introduce the Predator. Now, that is the hunting, enemy killing force type of thing. I've got the whole screen here displayed behind me so you can see exactly what's happening. And we are going to say that we are done now with item number 2. The Predator have been introduced, except that there was a mistake. What's happening here? Why are we so taking so long? Let's just fill it up, George. Oh. Technology always lets you down, doesn't it? Anyway, so there we go. It's now full. It's now done. Okay, so we're going to be moving on to the horse, which is next. But before that, let's just do a review of the actual episode. And I'm going to punch it in here so that you can have a look. All right, so the episode was The Predator. Let me just make sure that looks decent for you. All right, so the episode was The Predator, and the theme, of course, is perseverance, which I think happened. It was a master plot episode. We know that because, well, it came off of here. As a matter of fact, pretty much all of the episodes in this campaign will be master plot, as we've kind of packed them in pretty tightly here, except, of course, for the 5 backstories. So it was a master plot. We were introduced to the Nemesis. Now, the Nemesis came flying in on a white dragon. I'm going to talk about that when we get there. The white dragon was an emergent sort of thing that came from the discussions I was having with people about the adventure. And I was going, well, you know, they're riding on a wyvern and that sort of thing, and that's going to happen. Then I actually went and statted out our Nemesis, if you remember, Lord Quelgoth Rakthul, the Lord Sakari, the Dark Lord of the Sakari, worshipper of Gashul. And when I statted him out, I chose monster stats that worked for what he was to be. We're running a D&D game, so in terms of that, I made a level 5 monster, or challenge rating 5 monster for the party. Now, the party collectively, they're level 3, so 5 of them at level 3 should be able to take him out in a one-on-one situation. What I realized almost instantly was that with him and 5 other Predator that were going to be flying in with him in our original plan, description, get away from the Predator, the enemies were arriving wyverns, they're going to attack the party, they were lured by the shard. What I realized was that, A, we don't have a lot of time, so the show is only 2.5 hours long, which means that I have to be very conscious of what's happening in the show at all times. So I realized that 5 Predator plus Lord Rakthul, it's just going to be too much, isn't it? It's going to be too much for the party to handle. And as it turned out, we used Fantasy Grounds to do all the dice rolling. The dice were not in the favor of the players. We were rolling, well, everyone was rolling 1s, below 10 was the sort of the average for that episode, I think. I haven't actually seen the statistics, but it was a very, very poorly rolled session. So they were struggling to kill the 5 Predator sort of assassins that came along. Now, they also, they did their thing. So let's just run through the episode before I get too lost. We're going to come back to Lord Rakthul and how he changed. Okay, so what do we expect? It was a travel. We expected obstacles. We expected delays. We expected reroutes. We expected lost. And we expected out of time. They were going to run out of time. Okay, so what happened? They burst out of that the dungeon, the wall gave out, and they poured out. Now, there was some very good role-playing on behalf of the druid, who turned into a spider and climbed up out of this waterfall and sprayed down threads so that everyone could kind of grab onto that. But what happened was I wanted the entire party to fall out of this dungeon and to fall onto the sky whale below. But I like to use the mechanics and I like to make it tense, so everyone was making their rolls for acrobatics and athletics, and it was just a free-for-all in terms of trying to get them to either fall out of the waterfall and plunge down into the depths, or to cling onto the spider with enough force to actually hold the spider on and get the spider to leave as well, which is eventually what happened. But that ate into my time significantly. That amount of rolling, those sort of challenges and things as the guys were trying to keep their characters alive, all of that chewed up a lot of my time. And if you watch the show, you'll see that my eyes constantly do this when I'm playing. Now, my screen is set up so that I can watch the players, and that's what I do, is I usually watch the players the most. They're usually over there, I think, actually. So you'll see my eye line going there. I've got 2 screens set up. So that's where the players are, and over there is where my timer is. And I am watching that timer. Believe you me, I'm looking at it going, oh, it took us 40 minutes just to get them to fall out of this damned dungeon. That wasn't originally part of it, but I thought that it was a lot of fun. People seemed to be having fun anyway. And so they eventually fell onto the skywall. Then we said, okay, we have to have delays, we have to have obstacles, and we have to have reroutes. So I added in the 2 NPCs who will be on the skywell, flying it around. They see these elves who are typical elves from this world. I've decided they're all sun-baked. So I said, okay, well, we're going to go with a sort of an Arabian-esque type of theme. And they interacted with that captain to try and get them to go somewhere else. We introduced the idea that the shard that's embedded in Valentine's chest is leading towards somewhere. The party immediately jumped onto that and said, okay, well, we've got to get this skywell, this Bolovian skywell that we're on. We've got to get that to go there. Then the druid started to talk to the skywell. Now, I didn't anticipate that, and that was fantastic. I, in retrospect, wish I had played the interaction differently. He went with whale speak, which was wonderful. So we're doing whale speak now whenever they talk to this skywell named Sartoon. I gave it a name because I thought, well, I might need to use that when I was statting out the monsters and things. And if you'd like to see that side of the video, that side of the process, where I'm assigning monsters and things and building up those encounters, let me know in the comments below, and I'll do that. So it's not just planning it, it's where we actually sort of assigning monsters and things to that. That's a lot trickier, and there's a lot less narrative involved in that. It's because we're using Fantasy Grounds and because I need to use existing material. It's a bit different. Anyway, leave your comments below. So they chatted to the whale, they chatted to these sails, the owners of the whales, and they've now got the whale going to where they want. So they had that reroute, they had that potential delay that the whale was actually going somewhere else. I purposefully did not want that whale to go directly to where the next adventure is, and I chose that, by the way. I have a map of the solar sphere up. I chose the location that they were sort of being dragged towards at random. I kind of went, oh, it's over there. And then sort of extrapolated based on the location of the map that there are orcs nearby. It's very dangerous. They don't want to go there. So that the party was faced with the choice of, it's an obstacle that they had to overcome. I apologize if you can hear that chainsaw in the background. They're building a hotel, basically in the parking lot next door, and Sundays are not sacred, apparently, here in Japan. Sundays are when you catch up the work that you didn't do for the last 6 days that you've been working flat out. Nonetheless, we continue, chainsaws or not. So, that was an obstacle. Now, they were faced, and it became a really real threat with either trying to abduct the skywell, taking it over from these merchants, or trying to convince the merchants to sail in that direction. They ended up convincing the merchants to sail in that direction. So I was happier with that outcome, because it allows the merchants to become NPCs. And I have a plan for episode 3 where those NPCs become even more important. So watch out for that. We're going to get there in a few minutes. So right, so they're on the skywell. Then I had the Predator attack, because that was the ultimate goal. That was what we had to do. The goal was to get away from the Predator, riding wyverns, waterfall onto skywell. We did that. Shard pulls Valentine towards Donkey, Solosphere. We did that. Travel and difficult journey. We didn't need to do that because I ran out of time. I literally ran out of time. I said, okay, well, maybe I'll put in a thunderstorm, or we'll have a little island meteor shower type of thing. Didn't need to do that because we could go straight on to the skywell battle. absolutely straight on. Now, is it important that we didn't go Act 1, Act 2, Act 3? No, it isn't, especially in a game like this where we are rushing against time and I'm trying to fit these beats, these moments in. You need to be able to drop on the fly things that just don't necessarily need to be there. Well, they didn't need a difficult journey. They'd just fallen out of a floating island onto a skywell, and I completely ignored the distance drop, by the way, and the amount of damage they should be taking. I mitigated that because it wasn't part of my story. My story was not to kill the players plunging down onto a skywell below. That wasn't part of the plan. So that's why I ignored that. All right, so we then went on to the battle on the skywell, and that took longer than I anticipated because their rolls were so bad. And the monsters I had chosen monsters. Most of the monsters were CR1, some were CR2, but the party wasn't necessarily working together. They were quite split out, and they were sort of focusing on their own things. And interestingly enough, I didn't anticipate this. The druid trapped the wyvern. He caused the wyvern to fall onto the platform. Rightly or wrongly, doesn't matter. I made the call at the time. The wyvern fell down. I had never planned on the wyvern being involved in the combat. So the moment the wyvern got to its feet, I let the players beat on it for a little bit because it was a victory for them. They had managed to thwart this creature. And then I made it fly away. I did not want it to stay. It had to leave. So now we go all the way back to that original comment that I said about poor old Wakthroughs being on his own sort of thing, his own space, and let's just pop in there on that one. And so what I was chatting to people, I said that, he's on this wyvern with 5 other people. Someone said, well, he shouldn't have a wyvern. He should have something more interesting than just a wyvern. Let the base Predator have a wyvern. He should have something else. So I decided, yes, okay, he's going to have a white dragon. Now that white dragon is also, I think it's a CR5 or 6, somewhere around there. And that makes it a little bit more interesting. It makes it more visual. It certainly links together. He had his maroon armor, which we had worked out, and that sort of skull thing, which is delayed, that worked out quite well as the smell of dried rose petals, which one of the players picked up on straight away as being something. Now, what I realized when the battle started was that there's no ways that Wakthroughs is going to get involved in this battle. But I needed a way for him to get involved with the PCs, because if you remember, the entire idea was to introduce them to the Nemesis. We had to discover who the Nemesis was. That was the whole point of this. This is a Nemesis mission. It wasn't a villain or a henchman mission. If it had been a villain or a henchman mission, if it had just been a henchman mission, the 5 creatures that attacked them was absolutely fine. I might have had them, say, have some equipment on them that sort of linked back to Wakthroughs, but nothing more than that. As a matter of fact, it was lucky that I didn't, because they kept throwing the bodies off of the side of the skywell, kept sort of chucking them away, and there goes all my evidence that they could possibly have used. So with having the Nemesis there, I went, okay, so Wakthroughs is incredibly powerful. He flies on this wonderful dragon type of thing, so he could wipe the party out right now. But that wasn't my goal. My goal was to introduce the Predator, not to overcome everything. And that's where we go back to this master plot outline here. So we've now introduced the Predator. That means the climax down here, that's where Wakthroughs is going to get defeated with the White Dragon. So I now know by the time we get down here to number 3, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 missions to get the party up to level 5 so that they can face off against Wakthroughs and his White Dragon. I also know I can introduce Wakthroughs again, not for the horse. He's out of it for the horse. We don't need Wakthroughs to be there. Unite items to save the world. Yes, that one I can introduce Wakthroughs again. Race to the last shard is definitely going to be a Wakthroughs story. Race to location to stop it all will not be a Wakthroughs story, so that he's a little bit more dramatic when he comes back in the climax. But he needed to still interact with the PCs. He still needed to make his presence known. I needed to introduce him. So that's why I suddenly went, right, he has the ability to project himself off of the dragon and onto the platform. How does he do that? I don't know. I don't know whether it's a spell or a magical item. At the moment, it doesn't matter. It is just something that he's doing. and that he can do to get to the PCs. He can't interact with them, he can sort of reach out towards them, but it is basically just an arcanogram. It's a hologram. I call them arcanograms. It's just what I do in terms of trying to bring future tech into past tech and all that kind of stuff. So his arcanogram allows him to project himself forward, and he went through methodically each and every single one of them. Now, there was a reason why I did that. I could have just rolled randomly as to which player he started with. I didn't do that. I specifically specifically chose to make him start with a character and then work his way through, making sure that Valentine was the last one that he needed to interact with. Now, I did that so that each and every single player had the experience of meeting Wakthroughs and had him looking at them, sort of assessing them, and then moving on. The battle, as we came to the end of the episode, is effectively everyone is now dead except for one of the Predator shot. One of them has not been accounted for. And there were two reasons for this. One, I screwed up. They fell off of that wyvern when the druid downed the wyvern. He was so involved in killing the wyvern and when it flew off, he just ran down to the platform. I had forgotten about the two figures that were on the wyvern, and the reason why I'd forgotten about them is because in Fantasy Grounds you can make tokens visible or invisible. When they're invisible, they're slightly grayed out, so they didn't actually stand out on the map. So I literally missed them. At the end of the episode, I had one of them busy cutting the headline of the main palanquin that sits on top of the... And palanquin is the wrong word anyway. I think it's completely the wrong word. It's a howdah, I suppose. Well, whatever you want to call it. The platform on the head of the Skywell was being cut at, and of course they managed to kill that. They used Eldritch Blast, which sort of knocked him off and made him fall away. It wasn't supposed to be a long combat. It wasn't supposed to be this dramatic moment because I was out of time. If I hadn't been out of time, he would have clung on there and they would have had to have climbed down or fired arrows at him until eventually he died or he cut the cable. If it had been a full-length game, he would have cut that cable and the whole top rig would have sailed off, and then the druid would have been able to talk to Saturn, the Skywell, and make sure that Saturn then sort of follows orders and that kind of thing. So overall, I think it kind of followed through. We managed to achieve all the points we wanted to achieve. They've still got some corpses going. There is still one person left on that Skywell, and that for me is a seed that has happened that I particularly like. Now, we've seeded a whole bunch of stuff, which on the Nemesis sheet doesn't actually have it. So that's why I want to switch over to here. This is World Anvil. If you don't know who World Anvil is, they are allies with our channel. We work very, very closely together, to the point that I am now in the character. This is a character creation template. So I can type in here Wakthroughs. Okay. I can type in that he wears maroon armor. I can basically take this template and translate it into the World Anvil page. But World Anvil specifically, because of the way that I've been working with them so closely, because they are allies, you will notice that there is a very familiar icon here. Check out the Great GM's YouTube channel for some amazing GMing advice. Well, that's very kind of them to say that. But more importantly, what have I seeded with my players? I'm going to try and highlight that. What have I seeded with my players? So here now is where we can enter in everything that we've seeded. And when we save the changes, that means this character has now got, apart from all of the details, all of the information that World Anvil always throws in here, all of that wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff, we now have what we have seeded as well, and that remains part of that character. The players can't see this information. If I was going to share it with players, only the GM can see it. So for me, I think that is absolutely, absolutely wonderful. Furthermore, these templates, which come from the book that I'm writing, which has now gone off to the publishers, so it's all done. 31st of October, it's coming out. Watch out for that if you're interested. This template, this exact template with the emotional features and all this kinds of bits and pieces will also be added to the World Anvil site, so that you can go in if you've got the RPG module loaded up, which you can load up as part of your World Anvil experience. If you've got that loaded, not only will you have this usual World Anvil template, which is absolutely fantastic, but you will also have the additional features that I use and I refer to in the book, like speech patterns, sound, smell, all those descriptors and that kind of thing. It's all being incorporated in there. So that's a holistic space. All right, so I wanted to point that out to you because it makes your life easier. So rather than sort of having all these pages and templates and stuff, throw it onto World Anvil and then off you go. It's as simple as that. Okay, so review of the episode. I think it went fairly well. There were a few things that I would have liked to have done differently, of course. I think there should always be when you look back at a game that you run. But on the whole, everyone seemed to have fun. Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. And we achieved our primary goal, which was very much to introduce the Predator and to introduce the idea that the shard pulls Valentine towards the target and the objective. Okay, so now we move on to our part 2 of this video, I suppose you could say. This is now where we are now planning the 3rd episode, which is the horse. Now, the idea here behind the horse is, and I'm going to use this older template just to sort of fill it in. The idea behind the horse is now changed to a donkey. That's because of the trailer that I wrote for the show. Donkey was just more entertaining. So it's going to be a donkey. Just so that you know. The donkey idea is, we're introducing it now because of several reasons. People expecting a donkey, they want the donkey to be involved in the show somehow. We have to make sure, and this is very, very important, the donkey is going to become an NPC. Now, the important thing is that the donkey doesn't outshine the players. Now, this is a very fine line, and it's something that we have to look at in terms of how do we do it? How do we make sure that the donkey doesn't steal the show? And it's a fairly easy way of, there's a fairly easy sort of system that we can use to do that. And it's when we look at NPCs, we look at what makes them likable. Now, there are 3 elements that make a PC likable. One is likability. Do they tell jokes? Are they jovial? Are they happy-go-lucky? Are they optimistic? So likability causes us to like NPCs. Likability is one of them. Proactive. Are they proactive? Do they do stuff, or do they slouch and sit back and do nothing? If a character is proactive, we generally, if they're an NPC, we like them more because they get stuff done. The blacksmith who, in the background, forges bits of armor spiking for the players, so when the player characters come back, the blacksmith says, well, while you were gone, I forged a shield for you. I thought it could be useful. And it's a minor benefit or a bonus. Or it's just, well, I've put the family crest on your helmet because I thought it was missing something. It's a proactive. It doesn't have to be actually contributory towards the abilities of the players, but it just makes the NPC feel as if they're thinking about the players when the players aren't there. So we've got likability, we've got proactivity, and then the last one is competency. Is are they actually good at what they do? Do they actually have skills required? So the blacksmith who is competent, who is proactive, who is likable, if they have all 3 of those things, they might just become better than the players' characters, and you don't want that necessarily to happen. So usually we advocate 2 out of the 3. This is not a new idea. It's been spoken about a lot, and I think I first heard it from Brendan Sanderson, who came up with the idea in the first idea, Brandon Sanderson, who came up with the idea. So the idea here is that the donkey will not be proactive. I think the donkey is going to be very, very inactive. And there's a reason for that. The donkey's not going to do anything. That makes him a bit of an ass. Yes, that is a joke that I will try and use on the show. For those of you who don't know, an ass is basically an alternative form of mule. Anyway. So he's not going to be proactive. He's not going to do anything. Is he going to be competent? Well, what are donkeys competent at? Carrying stuff? Maybe. So he's not going to be particularly competent. I think he's going to be good in combat when he needs to be. And I think that's going to be quite a fun moment, that he can sort of do a bite for a tremendous amount of damage, or he can do a kick for huge amounts of damage, those sort of things. Likability, I think he's definitely going to be very likable. I think he's going to be someone who tells jokes and that sort of thing. I mean, this really is, if you look at it, the whole idea of the donkey, of course, came from Shrek, the film. And in that film, the donkey is very proactive. He keeps trying to do stuff. He's very likable, but he's just not very capable or competent at anything. That's where the joke comes in, is that he isn't a steed. He's this diminutive little donkey. I'm changing that around a bit. I want this donkey to be lazy, to be someone that the party really has to work hard to keep alive and keep going, because, well, he just doesn't do anything. So that's the kind of donkey that I'm going for. All right, so we've got our objective now, which is to get the donkey. The genre that this is in get the donkey. The genre that the guys asked for was sort of like action adventure, Indiana Jones style stuff. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Is we're going to give them, we're going to give them what they asked for, simply because they asked for it. Balok, I think, needs to make an appearance here. So I'm going to put in villain. Now, why do I want Balok to make an appearance? Balok was very downplayed in the first episode. Right at the end, Balok appeared and that was it. So I think having Balok appear again is going to be useful. It's also going to kind of tie us back to that original story, which I think is quite fun. We have now had discovering, we have now had thwarting as our adventures. So I think this one is going to be collecting in a very disguised kind of way. This one is going to be collecting, just because I think that's what's going to make sense for our donkey mission. So we're going to put in collecting there. All right. So what do we expect when we go to collect something? Well, we expect obstacles. Absolutely. We expect it not to be there. We expect it to be missing. We expect it to resist. What else do we expect when we expect a collecting mission? It's up to you to populate this as much as you like. All of this is just helping you to come up with an idea for your adventure. In this case, it's helping me to come up with an idea. The 1-2-1, 1-2-2 method is already thrown out the window because we don't need it. We're basically just doing a 1-1-1 here. So Act 1, description, we need to, what do we expect and how's different? Okay, so intro the goal. Right. Sacred donkey needs saving. One of the themes that happens in action-adventure movies frequently is that the damsel in distress is about to be sacrificed and needs to be saved by the hero. This, if you look at Indiana Jones movies, it's a common theme there. Well, if you look at almost any of the action-adventure movies, there's always someone in distress who needs to be saved. This goes all the way back. I mean, even Around the World in 80 Days, which is an action-adventure film. I mean, the original writing of it, the princess had to be saved from the evil cultists. So the sacred donkey here is our love interest, is our damsel in distress, and the donkey needs to be saved. Now, I, in the previous episode, set up a few things. One, I set up the fact that they are in this location out in the northern reaches of the planet, and that there are orcs very close nearby. I'm not going to use the orcs. The orcs are a threat. The orcs are a danger. I'm going to use the orcs later on. We've got plenty of time if I go back to the master plot here. We've got plenty of opportunities to introduce the orcs. We know that the climax, the climax and the race location is going to be in the undersphere. We know that that's absolutely true. The horses in the solar sphere. Unite items to save the world, I think, could quite easily be in the solar sphere as well. These are the 3 different locations within the world. And that puts all of the rest of the stuff in the terrasphere. So I'm absolutely happy with that. Unite items to save the world could very well be orcs. I don't have an issue with that. So we need an enemy, and the enemy is going to be the one that's going to be sacrificing the donkey. And we did set up that the Ivanites, Ivanites, I think they were called, the Yevanites, sacrifice donkey. Okay, so the Yevanites live on the solar sphere. They're these crazy sun-baked people who believe that you need to be completely sunburnt in order to exist. They are going to be trying to sacrifice the donkey. Now, we know where the party is heading. So as they are heading towards the city, because I don't want them to get to the city. This is not a city adventure. As they're heading towards the city, the shard inside of Valentin's chest is going to start pointing down as they're sailing over a remote island out in that general direction. They're going to look down and they're going to see this temple complex, and they're going to see the most beautiful woman ever who is about to be sacrificed. And then there's a string of other people that are going to be sacrificed. They're not going to see the donkey straight away because the players, there is a meta game that's happened already. They were part of the trailer, so they know that the donkey is important. I don't want them to see the donkey. I want them to see this young woman who is about to be sacrificed. And as she's about to be sacrificed, there's going to be a delay. And the delay will be that the head priest or something sees the, I don't want them to see the sky will, but as the priest is about to do something, there is a thunderstorm that happens, or there's a water geyser that shoots up, causing rain to fall down on everybody. So it delays the ceremony. So there we go. So delay ceremony. Princess green gem. Now, I'm going to purposely do this. She is going to be strapped to this altar, typical sort of sacrificial style, and when the players look down, they're going to see this shining green thing in the middle of her chest. And that is hopefully going to get them to go, okay, that's probably the object. It's going to be a piece of green jade that they use as part of the ceremonial sacrifice. I'm doing that specifically to get the party to go down there and to try and rescue this girl. So they're going to see that as the ceremony is interrupted, that she is taken, princess, taken, open cell. Okay, so she's taken to an open cell. Because she's taken to an open cell so that they can see, she's being held in that slightly unsecure location just on the edge of the sacrificial pits, and we can go and rescue her and get that green stone. That's what we can do. So I'm setting it up like that. So there's jungle all around. They're going to get into that jungle, and then they're going to try and rescue her. Now, if this was a longer form adventure, I would throw forest after forest encounter into that. In the jungle, they get attacked by a giant python or a tiger or I don't know what. We could certainly have fun with that. Then they get into the city. In the city, they're going to obviously have a fight with city guards if we need to, but I'm hoping that we don't. So my challenge here, this is really an opportunity for Jenks. She's been, I don't want to say fairly passive so far, but she hasn't really had an opportunity to shine. Valentine has got the green gem, so he shines in every episode. Barnabas is just such a great and voluminous PC anyway, that he kind of is always there. We've kind of had the druid doing some really cool stuff. He's been turning into spiders. He's been talking to the Skywell, so he's doing his thing. Draxus is just this absolute and utter villain of note. He's so abrasive. It's wonderful. So Jenks really, she's got her little weird bread thing, which I think is really cool. But I really want her to shine in this episode. So I think that hopefully she can sneak in and free the princess. Of course, they free the princess and realize, well, she doesn't have the gemstone. It's not with her. Who is it with? And they realize, of course, then that, so here we go. So I'm just going to pop that in here. Free princess. She doesn't have shard. It's a gemstone. Okay. And then the final showdown, because that's basically where we have to go, down here, is find donkey in stables. Flee. Yevonites. Now, that brings us in a rather neat circle to how we're going to do this. So the Skywell, originally I thought it would be quite fun to have the players have to figure out how to move between the different spheres, take hot air balloons and so on and so forth. With the druid bonding with Saturn, I think it would be a missed opportunity not to have Saturn appear more regularly. Now, Atnim Kasem, who is the pilot of Saturn, hasn't really featured. He has been downplayed. It has been Javran Surak, who has been the very, very, very difficult, very obnoxious sky captain who has been running around making deals to keep himself alive and to make profit. So Javran in the last show, he went and hid inside a cupboard. I did that for a reason. I wanted him to not see what was happening on the ship. If the players decided to take advantage of the Predashar attack to kill Atnim Kasim, although they would have no real motivation to do it other than to take over the Skywell, or if there was something else going on, having Surak hidden inside the cupboard allows him to not see what's going on. Now, what is going to happen is he's going to come out of that cupboard. One of the Predashar is going to have taken him prisoner, perhaps, or quite possibly Serac could... I don't want him to die. I don't want Serac to die. I think he's an interesting character on his own right. So he's going to come out of that cupboard. One of the Predashar is going to come running up behind him. The last Predashar, the unaccounted for Predashar, is going to come running up behind him and will take one hit to kill. So the party will get all an opportunity to do some kind of ranged attack. Draxus has got his range stuff. Valentin has got his bow. So there are a lot of opportunities for them to be able to reach and attack the enemy. They're going to do that. They're going to take him out, and then Javran Serac is going to say, I am indebted to you. I will never be able to repay you for the kindness that you have shown me by saving my noble personage. But he's going to drop them off in the jungles near the Yevonite temple. And then he's going to go and sell his cargo. I have to do this. I have to do this. You have no idea. I have no choice. I must go. I will be back in 24 hours. Don't worry. I will be back. So they're going to leave. Now, the reason why they're going to leave is because that's going to up the stakes, isn't it? That's really going to up the stakes in terms of the party not being able to escape from the Yevonites quickly. However, at the very end, as they are fleeing the Yevonites, they're going to get to the point where they get to the edge of the cliff, where there is no hope of them going anywhere, because we can set this up, and I want it to become a bit of a theme. The Yevonites in their hundreds are charging towards the party, and suddenly Sartun sails underneath the cliff, and they can all jump onto the back and sail off, saying goodbye to the Yevonites. It allows us to build into the NPCs that Serac goes, I could not leave my friends behind. You save me, I save you, we're now equal. So now you pay, huh? It gives us that opportunity. It gives Sartun an opportunity to shine, and it gives the players a means to get around, so that when we then are looking at heading into the backstory number 1, that backstory will unfold when we are effectively in the shopping episode, or whatever that episode is going to be. They'll fly to the city that originally the Sartun and Serac was heading to. They'll drop off. They'll do some trade, and Serac's like, well, it is very dangerous to sail around, so if you need transport, come and find me. It gives us an opportunity to keep them back, and it allows us to see if the players are buying into Serac and Sartun as an individual. Okay, so what must the players learn from this? Well, they must actually acquire the donkey. That's pretty much it. They have to acquire the donkey. Now, once they've got the donkey, we need to figure out, this is the only last thing that we really need to think about, is what happens when the two come together. And I think when the two come together, Valentin should realize that he has this ability, this power, which allows him to maybe have some magical effect. But in using the magical effect, he or the donkey get tired. They become fatigued. So that it shows that by utilizing the power of the crystal, yes, they can do it in times of distress, they can do it in times of need, but at the same time, it puts a drain on both of them, and the crystal doesn't glow as brightly as before. So that's something that they can discover. Whether they're going to discover that here or later on, it doesn't matter. It's just something to have in the back of our minds. All right, so list of names of the Yevonites. I think we're going to have Toxikal. We're going to have Chintuk. We're going to have Zottelglot. We're going to have Pokwa. I think. Okay, so just come up with different names here. These will be used obviously in the temple itself. The princess needs a name, so let's give her quite a nice name. Let's say her name is Ixiatala. Is that a nice name or not? I don't know. Fankoki. Yoquatlas. There we go. It was a keyboard mix-up. It says 10 names. I don't think we're going to need 10 names. We're only there for 2 hours. It really isn't that much. If they don't rescue the donkey, how does that change the master plot? It simply means that Wakthroughs finds the donkey and is going to be there. We said we wanted to include perhaps that we wanted to include Balok, what's his name? Not Balok, Balar, from the very first episode. We can do. So I'm going to put down here, as a note, Balor may be here. Question mark. If they can't get to the, and I'm going to actually move it here. If they can't get to the princess, Balor might be there. What are you doing here? I'm trying to steal the gem of whatever it might happen to be, etc., etc. So we can include them. Okay, great. So this is our adventure. It fits right in here. What do we have to do now? Well, we need to do a little bit of a map of the compound, perhaps. We might need that. We've already got the map of the whale that I used to do that. That was fairly straightforward, fairly simple. There wasn't too much in that. And so now we're pretty much ready. We will be, obviously I'll stat out Yuvenites and stuff, but they're going to be really just cannon fodder. This is not a combat-orientated mission. We've had one of those already. This is a collecting mission. So the objective is sneaking in. Maybe what I will do is the Yuvenites, although they believe in being sunburned, I think there should be temple attendants who are completely covered up with just their eyes being revealed, so that the party could disguise themselves as Yuvenites, and that gives us that wonderful opportunity for them to sneak around and sort of make religion checks to try and convince other Yuvenites that they are actual Yuvenites. I don't know. I mean, that's an option. I'm just sort of throwing out things that could possibly come up. And that's something to think about, is although we have a plan here, we can change it, we can adjust it, and we can accommodate for changes as we go along. Anyway, those are my thoughts on episode 3 and getting the donkey. And of course, somewhere in there, when they do rush in to find the donkey, he's going to turn around and say, "What, you were expecting a steed?" Because that's in the trailer. People really commented on that. It is something that we need to have in there as well. And it also sets up his personality that is a bit abrasive. They're like, "Come on, we've got to get you out of here." "Why, I'm quite happy, as a matter of fact. They supply me with straw, and all I have to do is carry around the bodies of the sacrificed humans. It doesn't really bother me very much, and, well, I'm not leaving." So they're going to have to try and convince him how to leave. It depends on how much time I have left as to how obstreperous he's going to be and how how much he's going to dig his heels in, or his hooves in this case, before he decides to leave with them. But that's the idea. We're going to get him involved in that somehow. Anyway, so I look forward to next week's show. We've now got our plan here. Like I said, if you want me to take you through how to do the mapping section, which we're using Dungeon Painter Studio for, as well as then how to stat out the creatures that we're going to use in the encounters, let me know in the comments below, and I will do that for you, because ultimately this is about us all learning and sharing. And I do read your comments and notes as well, by the way, on how you would do stuff. Usually the video comes out only a couple days before the show happens, but I do read them and look at them and go, yes, that would have been a much better way to do it. That's the wonderful thing, is that there's no one way to do it. I just find that this template allows me to kind of figure out where I need to be, what I can drop, what I can include, what I can add to get where I need to be. Anyway, until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.